Parnosa. Speaking about compassion, we're speaking about love, speaking about the tzaddik, doremala and doremata, to connect worlds, to connect universes, speaking about not being a shlamazit, and being an ish chayil, being a person who's a warrior person, to fight the Yetzer Hara, to fight for God. So let's go right into the Torah, Mem Beis, in the big edition here, Mem Beis. It's in the middle of Ois Yud. Umash nisgala ha'aretz ha'rotzim be'eis achila davchen. That we've been learning that when a person eats, if they eat in a proper way, if a person eats in a way of holiness, then he receives a light. And later we understand this is the light of Hanukkah. He receives a light, Mem Beis on the bottom. He receives a great light that opens up. Which is interesting because usually when a person eats, what happens? They get lost in the sauce. And they get lost in the physicality of the items they're eating. And they don't usually associate that with something of light, something of revelation. But we're learning, if a person eats in a way of kedusha, if he eats in a way of holiness, and he's not pulled down by the food, but rather he has something that's revealed to him. It could be that's a different book entirely.
Oh, okay. This is for a base. So we're not. Oh, okay.
So says the Rebbe, Da, So now we begin. So Rabbi Nachman oftentimes will introduce an idea, and then he'll tell you that everything that I just said in this kind of radical idea, that if somebody wants to receive a great light, a great illumination at the time of eating, well, you have to know the following idea. And you have to do the following idea if you want to receive this light. So Rabbi Nachman wants to reveal the light. And he says, you should know. Somebody wants to gird his loins to be a provider, a financial provider. All of us want to be financial providers. All of us want to be able to give to those that are in need. So how do we do that? How do we become a provider? Not just being a taker, but being a giver. Because all of life is going from being a taker to being a giver. When you're born, what are you?
Taker.
You're the biggest taker, right? The tzaddikim say that when a baby is born, their hands are like this. They're all scrunched up like this. When they pass on from this world, a person's hands are open like this. And the whole journey of life is going from being like this, from being an Uncle Scrooge, from being a taker, clenched up, to at the end of our life that our hands are open. Opening up the hands to be a giver. So somebody wants to be a giver. Parnosa and to give financial abundance to those who depend on this person. Who would depend on such a person? Kids to their parents. Employees to the employer. A people to their king. You know, it says a king is responsible to provide the finances for the whole kingdom. It's on his shoulders. And that's why in the time of King David, people would come to King David and they said, Rabbi, my king, we're having trouble with our finances, help us. And he gave the Jewish nation advice, eitzah, how, what? Because it's on him to make sure that the people, if you're the king, you got to make sure the people are taken care of.
Each of those things, like the parent, the boss, the king, whatever, that's like literally again. It's like that's where that fits in. Does anybody who has people who have money have an influence on other people. Not to say that they're better or anything, but they have an influence. When people have money,
sure,
they can affect certain
yes.
thing. So you kind of are the leader. You have to use that responsibility with Rachamim and guide them through Rachamim.
Very good, because if people came to the king, they said, you know, Rebbe, my king, I need a new Ferrari. So, I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. Do your kids have what to eat? No, but I need a Ferrari. Again, the true compassionate one knows how to move the shefa. How to move the shefa. So if somebody wants to be a mefarnes, now, Shana, I was thinking about you this morning. I had a feeling you were coming. I was driving my bike in. My mom had a feeling.
I've been trying.
And especially I thought to myself, on such a day, it's cold outside, but it's warm in here. So, Mamish, come.
The second day is the first day where Moshe v'Holiness.
Moshe v'Holiness. Amen. So somebody wants to be mefarnes. He wants to provide financial blessing. It's interesting. Liten parnosa lahatluyim boy. To give parnosa for the people that depend on him. Okay, we'll get maybe more into that line in a little bit. To give parnosa to those that depend on this person. Hutzar shieh ish Chaim. He needs to be warrior man. If a person wants to be a provider, he has to have the power of an ish Chaim, to be a warrior man. V'lo yeh ha'hepech shekaren shlemazel. And he can't be a shlemazel. Who is the ish Chaim of the parsha? that we identify in the parish as being the Ish Chayil, Yosef HaTzadik. With all the challenges and all the temptations and being put into the pit and being thrown into the dungeons, Yosef HaTzadik never gives up this feeling of I'm an Ish Chayil. And what happens to Yosef HaTzadik? He becomes Shein L'Malchus, and all the parnosa of the world goes through him.
Through him.
He is the Yesod that everything is flowing through. Hu Hashod, Hu Hamashbir.
Oh, that's even deeper. He's the Yesod.
It's all flowing through Yosef HaTzadik because all the world's wealth came down to Mitzrayim. There's a famine in the world. There's 7 years of plenty and there's 7 years of famine. And Yosef HaTzadik is storing up everything, and the whole world is going through a famine, which means the whole world brought their silver and their gold to Yosef HaTzadik. So he now had under his dominion all the wealth of the whole world to move it in healthy ways. So in order to have that ability, a person cannot be a shlamaz. He has to be an ish chayil. So we'll see what it means to be an ish chayil. How does somebody become an ish chayil and take upon themselves this power in order to not just hoard the money for yourself? You're here to provide it to those that need. In order to bring down the powers of being a mefarnes. It doesn't say you want to be rich. A guy who wants to be rich, we're not talking about that. We're talking about a mefarnes, a provider, that you're a conduit, you're a channel of abundance to be magnetized and then go through you. And this is not like the law of attraction stuff here. We're not talking about that. You know what I'm saying? The Secret. He had a movie like that many years ago. Of just manifest. We're not talking about that. We're talking about something much more profound. That is, where will the finance come? Where will the blessing flow to? It will flow to somebody that has memshala. Memshala means a level of kingship. If somebody has a level of kingship, if they have connected to this power of memshala, then they will have the ability to be a mefarnes. Ki kol parnosa nimshach mi'amalchus. It's very important. Back to Malchus.
It always goes back to that Malchus.
That's right. Which are also Doramata, right? Malchus. Doramata. But it's interesting, if you're a provider, you're already Doramala, no? I don't know where I am. I don't know, am I a Doramala? I'm not sure where I am.
Our whole thing is have to be both. So.
For sure, Kol. Achid Shemayim V'Aram. For sure, and I think that's the theme of the Torah, is that you keep finding yourself going from Doramal to Doramata at the same time, because tzaddik has to be Kol. Ochid Shemayim V'Aram.
So you would say Malchut is Doramata, and everything else is Doramal?
Klapi Malchus is the lowest of the spheres.
Right.
So Klapi, the rest of the spheres, it's just the receiver. It's just an empty kli,
But would you say that Doramata corresponds to Malchut only?
Doramata corresponds to anything below it, in relation to it.
Okay.
By the way, that's what you saw in Kabbalah. When you see something which is like a Doramala Inyan, Doramata Inyan, like Zohar and the Keva, there's also Doramata. That's only Klape where it is in the system. So something could be in a Keva, Zoh could be in a Keva, Klape Gar, the Gimel Rishonis. Even though that Zoh is a Zohar Klape Nuk.
So it's more Nekeva compared to something up. Like as you go
in relation to it, yes.
Right. As you go down, it kind of becomes more swayed to Nekeva.
That's right.
And then Malchut is like more pure Nekeva.
At the same time, Malchus then becomes the provider.
Right.
Malchus then spills out the bracha to the Doramata Mamish, to to the Yeshuva Shalom of you and I sitting here, sipping some Costa Rican coffee.
And then it's the provider for the next thing.
That's right. And why are we drinking this? In order to have koyak, to then provide for our kids. And Yeshuva Shalom. And just continue. So, where is the real Dora Mata?
There is no Dora Mata.
So the kids then have to provide for their kids and provide for their...
It's all relative.
It's always relative in the system, where you are.
Census learns, it's all relative.
And that's why I think it's cold. It's cold. The tzaddik is cold. The tzaddik is achad shemai va'ara. Just make yichudim. Just connect. Just simplify everything. Try to connect. Make yichudim. So in order to do this, we need memshala. Because malchus comes, and parnosa comes from malchus. Kamaisha kosa b'melech. This was an amazing incident in the Sefer Daniel. Sefer Daniel, the great prophetic work of Daniel, is that Nebuchadnezzar had a nightmare. Nebuchadnezzar had a nightmare, and he had nobody to understand the meaning of his nightmare. And he looked for all the king's horses and all the king's men, and all the sorcerers and the necromancers of Bavel, and nobody could help him. And he got Daniel. And Daniel was taken into the king's palace after the conquest of Yerushalayim. And he said, Daniel, this was my dream, this is my nightmare. There was a tree that was in the center of the earth that was so big, and it stretched all the way up to the heavens. And the tree stretched to the edges of the universe. And the tree was producing beautiful, beautiful fruits. And people were just coming to this tree and eating from the fruits. And it was providing sustenance for everybody. And then an angel came and started chopping it down. So Daniel said like this, Ilona di chazaisa, this Ilona, this tree that you saw, talchazi. Di rava was sakif, that's big and mighty. Umazon lakoila bay, and it's providing mazon. Providing the zaynis for everybody. Antu Malka, it is you. You are that tree.
So you get that? Antu Malka?
Yeah. It is you, that tree. Because the tree was providing parnosa. In the end, it was cut down.
Get out of there.
You know how tall Nebuchadnezzar was? We have a Masorah that he was one amma. One amma. There's even a medrash that he was one tefach.
The same thing as Paro.
That's right. Di rava uskif. And they say that his amma, just to mature audience, was also an amma. He was an amma, and his amma was an amma.
So Moshe Rabbeinu was 10 Amma.
Now, is that mamish literal? I'm not sure. But he was definitely very short in comparison. But don't underestimate somebody who's not tall. Nebuchadnezzar was, the Gemara says, one of the most powerful people. He ruled over Kippah Sa'aretz. He had memshala over the whole world. There's only a few that had memshala over the whole world. The Gemara discusses who are the people that had memshala over the whole world. Ahasuerus. The Gemara says Shlomo Melech. Alexander the Great. And the Gemara says Shlomo Melech.
Yosef would be considered?
Yosef wasn't mentioned in that list, I don't believe.
Interesting.
Because he was still under.
That's
I was
right.
thinking, because it's under Paro.
Alexander the Great, Nebuchadnezzar, and Ahasuerus. And the Gemara says, what about Shlomo Melech? So the Gemara says, Shlomo Melech, we were just talking about people that ruled in during Mata.
Wow.
Shlomo Melech ruled also in the Shemayim. And the Gemara talks about Ashdai in the fight with the head of the demons. So this that we see, that parnosa comes from Malchus, is that this is this great tree that's just providing and providing. And kafi, that a person has malchus, they're going to be a financial provider. Now it's interesting. Now it goes, who wants to receive parnosa? What do you mean? I thought you were talking about somebody wants to be a parnos, a provider of parnosa. Now we're saying somebody wants to receive parnosa. Did we just go again from Dorimata to Dorimata? Sar shiela ktsas memshala. It's interesting, you only need ktsas. Once you have a little bit of memshala, you could already receive.
It doesn't take much to receive. He wants to give.
It does take long to receive.
Oh, that's interesting also, I was thinking that. It's ktsas memshala to receive it, but somebody wants to be mafarnes, he has to be an ish chayil already. Even though before we said ktsas memshala, we said ktsas. He called ha parnosa nimshim malchus. So you need a ktsas memshala. Is ktsas memshala an ish chayil? Maybe you could say that that's already an ish chayil. Once you already have a little bit of memshala, you've moved out of shlamazel. You've made the transition out of shlamazel. You just made one move to make a move of leadership. You're not in the world of shlamazel anymore. And then we get brought into a Gemara in Shabbos, in Tzvachim also. It says the following: a pasuk in Ruth, La'esa oichel, at mealtime, goishi haloim. So this is when Naomi and Ruth came to Eretz Yisrael, and there's also a famine. And Ruth was a Moabite princess, and she chose to become a Jew. She gave up all fame and fortune, as it was not popular, and it's still not popular, if somebody decides that they want to become a Jew. But Ruth says that I want to become a Jew, and she goes with Naomi, and she's collecting leket, the gleanings in the field. And Boaz is there and says, come over and let's have a Suda together. And at the time of the meal, also back to eating, Goishi, come haloim. That word haloim is significant. Come over here. Come here. We're going to eat together. And the Gemara says, Ein haloim ela malchus. Come here. Haloim is malchus. So the Gemara in Shabbos says something very beautiful. It's a deep connection. The Gemara in Shabbos is actually darshaning all the psukim of Ruth. Kedai to look over here. Kuf Yud Gimel. So the Gemara says like this: the Yomer lo Boaz, and Boaz said to Ruth, La'es ha'oichel, while it was time for eating, Goishi haloy, come over here, v'yochalta min alechem, and you'll eat from the bread. We're going to have a Suda. And the Gemara says that the word haloim over here is miyuter. Come, and you'll eat from the bread. He was saying, come here. Why did it say come to here and eat the bread? Just say goishi, and you'll eat from the bread. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Elazar. Boaz was speaking with Ruach HaKodesh. Boaz was speaking prophetically at this moment, hinting to something very important.
Who wrote down the story?
I think Ruth. I'm not sure.
Because it's very narrative. So who was there?
You know that Mordechai and Esther wrote down. Esther.
Right.
It's also narrative. I'm not sure. We have to look into that. I think Ruth. Amar Rabbi Elazar. So Rabbi Elazar says that Boaz was speaking prophetically at that moment. Why did the word haloim come out of his mouth at that moment? Is that Boaz was prophetically already leading the way that Rus would be the mother of Malchus. She would be the mother of King David, of David HaMelech. The Mashiach would come from her. Remez Romaz La, says the Gemara, that Boaz was hinting something to Rus. Asida Malchus beis David latseis mimech. That in the future, the Mashiach is going to come from you, Dichsiv Be, because it says about Malchus beis David, and then the Gemara takes us to a pasuk in Shmuel, Haloim. The pasuk in Shmuel Beis, speaking about the ascension of King David, coming and ascending to kingship. It says, V'yavoy HaMelech David, and came the King David himself, the Yeshiv Lifnei Hashem, to sit before God. What a line. Came King David to sit before God. Sometimes a person learns Torah and they think to themselves like, you're doing Shtei Mikra. Yidaber Shem Moshe Leim, or like in a Vaitim. Tzav Bnei Israel. Wait a second. V'yidaber Hashem el Moshe Leimor. God said to Moses. Can we just like stop for a second? Could you imagine God said to Aaron Avital? How do you read that so fast? God speaks to human beings. It's amazing. It's amazing. And when Mashiach comes, prophecy is going to come back into the world. We're going to hear God speak to us. In Hanukkah, you hear it through the organos, sitting by the candles. And it comes, it's starting, that's the chinuch of Hanukkah. It's really being taught about the light. When Mashiach comes, it's going to be open communication. So Hashem says, and Hashem, the prophet is saying, King David came and sat in front of God. V'yoyim, mi anoichi, Adonai Hashem, umi beisi, and what is my house? Ki heviosani ad haloim, that you've brought me to the kingship. Haloim.
Who's saying this? David?
David.
That's why Haloim is so wrong.
Also, la'oim la'oim yematz. Where do we see that also? La'oim la'oim. Yaakov and Esav. La'oim la'oim la'malchus. And a nation from a nation will be victorious. Because k'shezeh kam, zeh nafal. K'shezeh nafal, zeh kam. The Marsha says something here very beautiful. Lo'im lo'im yematz. Loshen haloim is shaykh to Malchus beis David. Like the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah. An important Gemara there in Avodah Zarah. On Mem Daled and Aleph. Shiroi LaMalchus beis David keser hoy lamosoi. Haloim also means, the Gemara says, somebody that would be fitted to be a king of the Malchus beis David. The crown will fit on their head. Like Cinderella, the shoe fits.
That's what they got the story.
Mamish.
They just put the shoe.
And there was like that wicked lady who was like trying to squish her fat foot inside the shoe.
The sister.
It was the sister.
The stepsister.
Stepsister.
Yeah, I'm holding.
I didn't know the Pirte. I knew the Indian. I wasn't
15 years, but I'm holding.
It's amazing. Imagine we do Mishnayos. Like I know Simpsons episodes. Okay? That's you have to give it to your kids, Mishnah.
So God always says we need brainwashing. We need to wash our brain.
It's to wash out the schmutz, for sure. For sure. And even if it's not schmutz,
Right.
just
It
takes up energy.
Takes up
It's
brain.
in
Get that.
there. Rabbi Yosef famously, he was on a trip one time, and he was in the car, and he had to call his sister-in-law for something. So he asked the driver for the phone number, and he went to back in the day they had, these things called like telephone booths. And he went and he dialed the number, and then he came back in the car, and she didn't answer it, so he came back in, and then he went sometime later, and he said, "Can I just get the number again to call?" And he said, "Sure." And he wrote down the number again, took it, and then he came back, and he had to call again. So he took the number again. So at a certain point, the driver said to the tzaddik, said, "You know everything by heart. You have a photographic memory. You know everything mamish." I think there were certain times that he got to go into certain places that were exclusive places, into areas where they have manuscripts, like in the Vatican. And you can't bring cameras. So he said, "No problem." She said, how do you not know the phone number? He said, I understand that all the data that's coming in I want to put important data in. But this number, it's not the most important thing that I should know. So just having 10 numbers, I could remember it, but I want to make space for something else in that spot. So there was a place of, so here, David HaMelech, if it fits, then he's part of Malchus based David. Says the Marital, She'eino roi, eino haim lasai. If somebody is not fitting for the Malchus, the crown will not go on. And therefore, v'lachein nema b'pasuk ha'aloim chaser vav. And therefore, it also says in the pasuk, without the vav, hinting to the fact that those that will be part of the Malchus based David, that the crown will fit on their head. So the Gemara here is saying, back to us, that when Boaz said the words La'esa'echel goishi halon, that come over here, that the word is also hinting to Malchus, that the Malchus based David, that anybody who's part of Malchus based David, that the crown will fit. And Boaz was hinting to Ruth that you are going to be the mother of the Malchus based David, you're going to be the mother of Mashiach. Ein aloim la Malchus. Ki tsar shi'ei loy memshala b'chinas Malchus le'esa oichel. You see that Boaz is also making sure that that's connected at mealtime. Doramal doramata. Ki al dezem nimshach ha parnosa kanal. What's the whole connection that a person's going to get their Malchus at the time of eating? Because that's exactly the time that either you could be a shlamazel and eat sadly like an animal, like by the trough, chas v'shalom, or you own the eating experience and you bring the food to you. Like many tzaddikim, they won't bend down when they eat. They'll pull the food up to them. They'll make doramata, doramalda. They'll be pulling it up this way. I don't want to get lost, which really takes us back all the way to the beginning. Then what was Moshe Rabbeinu doing? He doesn't want people that are just bedemus of them, that they're acting like a behemoth. That be'esa oichel is really the time that you can see the difference of the human being. You don't get upset when a chazer goes to its trough and a horse goes to its feeding bin and just, gets involved. You say it's a dog, it's an animal. You don't say, "Where's your manners?" But a human being like elbows out, fork in hand, or like this. You're like, Rabbi Yid. There you feel like it's just not it. It's going into the animal side. But a person, la'esa oichel, at the time of eating, goishi haloim, you bring malchus. Then we said malchus is the source of parnosa. All the parnosa will come down. The alkain. And now he brings an amazing idea into marriage. He says, therefore, kishahabal choiger masnov neged ishtoi. When a husband says, you know what? How did he translate there? Choiger masnav, girds his loins. He says girds his loins.
Actually,
Girds himself.
Girds himself. When he girds himself with regards to his wife.
Oh,
Umechayev atzmai lefarnasa. He says, I'm getting married.
I say negative ishto.
In relation. In lazor ishto. With regard to.
Ezer kenegdo. Maybe that's why. Negdo, like it's also like.
No, zacha,
Zacha,
ozer.
Zacha.
Ein zacha, negdo. שנזכה, בעזרת השם. הוא מחייב עצמו לפרנסה. Now, how is he machayiv? He says, I'm going to marry you. Kamaisha kosa b'ksuba. When you write the marriage document says, Va'ana eflach ve'eker ve'ezon. You say, I will cherish you. Eflach. Ve'eker, I will honor you. Ve'ezon, and I will support you financially. When do we read this to the chassan?
Depends.
Well, usually by the chassan tish, and then again by the chutbah. So usually the chassan by the chassan is just like, and it's like giving mazel tov to everybody, and there's usually some like serious looking, rabbi with a white beard that's like, you know what this says in here? It's like,
I think that's why they do that.
I'm getting married. He says they don't really have what's going on. They sort of understand.
Sign the contract.
Like, you know what this says, by the way? This says, like, you even have to sell the shirt off your back. I feel like glim al kaspoy. Even the shirt off your back to make sure that your wife has parnosa and mezainis. It's like, yeah, Rabbi, let's get to the chuppah. So when a person does that, though, and he's aware that, okay, I'm about to take upon myself, I like to tell guys, you know what the Ksuba says? It basically says that you got 7 days to party, and then you got to go to work. That's the Ksuba. And he understands that I have responsibility now. As soon as he accepts upon himself that I am now responsible to be a mafarnes, to be a financial provider, then he will receive the blessing. Kamaisha Kosev, like the pasuk said, Hu Yimshol Bach, and he will have Memshala. He will be the guiding force in the home and the provider in the home. My rule, this is my financial rule. I heard this from Building Senior. This is the financial rule. He earns it, she spends it. That's the rule. Once you own that, that's when the flow happens. He earns it, she spends it. Now, however he can organize that, that's up to him.
It's exactly this. It's like,
Manage it.
the whole point is just to go through you.
Because we don't have like two income. He earns it, she spends it.
But shouldn't he have some like
say in the spending?
I mean,
Wait, but if she wants to work also, like then what?
That's fine.
But like, does she spend it then? Or do you get her money?
He gets to spend it.
He earns it, she spends it.
Oh no.
She can also work, there's no problem. Pasha. But the buck stops with him. He's responsible.
Yeah, but you have some women who are now responsible with money.
You can have a conversation. And you could say that, you can't just go buy a Ferrari.
Or like a
You get a discussion.
on something.
You get a discussion about that. You might want to be aware of that before you get married. Of who
you're marrying?
that's right.
You might want to know who you're marrying,
Yeah,
You definitely should know, but I'm saying, you can usually get a sense. Is this someone who just wants to spend my money? Or are we really going to build something much more than that? Because he has to give guidance. He has to give direction in the home. But really it's up to him. And therefore, if there's, sadly, God forbid, not shefa flowing into the system, it really, afilu glima al kaspoy, even the shirt off his back. And this is the rich dad, poor dad. The rich dad is the one that says, I'm just going to make moves to make things happen. He's always the mover. He's making moves. He's making sure that everything is just flowing in the system. He's hustling to make opportunity. Through the memshala, through this malchus, through owning the malchus, through being the ish chayil, that brings the flow of parnosa.
Flows right through.
It flows. And therefore you're going to be the receiver, to be the provider. Says the Rabbi, v'chein kol asarim, and anybody who's in a leadership position, ministers, kings, a CEO, kol mi shetzarach liten parnosa yoyser la'anoshim rabim atluyim bo, and according to how many people you have to provide for, according to that, you need to have more memshala.
You're clean to receive. To
That's right. If you're in charge of a Fortune 500 company, you can't be a shlamazer because everybody's depending. You got to cut the checks. There was somebody that I know that he was in charge of a lot of people, and it was at the time of a transition of a certain organization, and the flow wasn't coming in. And he basically said, though, he'll take all the money out of his bank, and he'll just pay everybody out of his own pocket. And he just owned it. He just totally owned it. And the whole thing flipped around. And he started then making more, because he took it upon himself. He could have just said, forget about the whole thing, closing shop. But he said, I'm owning this. I'm owning this. Ishchaya. He's cutting checks out of his bank. It's personal bank. He didn't need to. It really belonged to the organization to do it. But he just felt, if I'm at the helm of this, and there's people that depend on me, and these are workers, they need their paycheck. They've got wives and kids and families to take care of. So he owned it. It was like a switch psychologically. That's why I keep saying, the whole thing of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is it's all about psychology. It's really this flip to go to Ish Chaya. It's moving to that place. And the person who's yoiser, he's more responsible. L'rabim atluyim bo, hutzar shelo yoiser memshala, kedei sheyuchal lahamshir haparnosa, al ve'amalchus kanal. To the degree that he has the malchus, he's going to be able to give the parnosa. Then the Rebbe goes into something which we're only going to properly be able to do tomorrow, which is, where does the malchus get its parnosa from? We just said that malchus is the source of all the parnosa.
Hashem.
So, yes, it's always going to go back to Hashem. But there's a bit of a sequence to get there. Because malchus has to get it from above.
It's the same thing. It's Dori Mala, Dori Mata. You relative to below,
yes,
you're Dori Mala.
That's
you
right.
relative to Hashem, you're Dori Mata.
That's right. But let's be a little bit more sophisticated as we're going up. Klape the Dori Mata, what is going up? Dori Mata, we said, is Pinim. Dori Mala are Makifin. Remember Makifin, Rabbi Yisai? Wait till we see this Torah again. Our second round. And we manage to actually see the in of what's going on, and you see the whole picture. So as you go up from Dore Mata, from a Pinim, which we said is the whole idea of a Makif and a Pinim. A Makif is something beyond you, and a Pinim is something that you've integrated. And the Rebbe has to give you Makifin that you can then make into a Pinim. So the Malchus is getting from a higher Makifin. What are the highest Makifin?
Infinity.
So remember we said that the Tzaddik Hador goes into a place of Makifim Eliyonim. Remember that? Makifim Eliyonim. some of the makifim eliyonim. What are the highest makifim? So look what the Rebbe says. Hamalchus mekabla parnosa min bechinas hayodayim. They get it from the hands. Sheyesh b'yam hachokma. There's a place up there called the Yam HaChochma, also Chochma, and there's a Yam up there. There's a great sea called Rabbi Ichimar Morgenstern. There's a great Yam up there, and there's something called the Yadayim in this Yam. It's like drawing the waters. What are these Yadayim in the Yam HaChochma? Says the Rebbe, the Yadayim in the Yam HaChochma, the Hainu, Haramazim Sheyesh Shehem Bechinas Yadayim. The hands in the Yam HaChochma are the hints that the Rebbe does through his hand motions that are pulling down the highest makifin, things that otherwise the student wouldn't be able to understand through his words, that he hints to with his hands. I had the great schus last night of being by Don Segel in his yeshiva, by his Hanukkah Mesiva. And I was just learning this Torah next door in Or Avram. And I was sman of the Gdolei Ador Mandash. And Rav Don makes music and he sings. So there's hundreds of us packed into his bass measures. And he's at the front on like one of these mouthless sticker chairs, right by the Aron Kodesh, with a microphone. An excellent piano player. And he was like making all sorts of hand motions and making rhythm and doing all sorts of things with his hands. Now trying to learn the language of his hands. Things that he couldn't otherwise tell us, but was hinting to with his Yodayim from the Yam HaChochma. And we're going to see that these makifin that a person brings down from the Yam HaChochma are going to be the highest in Yonim. Those flow down through the Seisra Madregas into Malchus, those makifin, and then Malchus receives that, and that's where all the parnosa lies. So really the parnosa gathers, all the financial blessing gathers in Malchus. However, it starts in the Yodayim, in the Yam HaChochma. We're going to see tomorrow a medrash. That's right. That we're going to see in a medrash tomorrow, and it's Hashem, that we don't usually think that the sea has hands. And the Medrash says that when you look at the sea, you don't see hands. But when God looks at the sea, he sees hands inside the sea. So Rabbi Sai, we're speaking about parnosa, we're speaking about wealth. We're speaking about being a provider. We're speaking about haloim. We're speaking about at the time of eating, la'eis ha'oichel goishi haloim. And ein haloim ala malchus. And this is the Malchus based David. And Ruth is the mother of Malchus. And we're speaking to Siyat Deshmaya about being a mafarnes and providing. And in order to do that, you need to have memshala. And that's why when the husband agrees and the ksuba is signed, and he takes upon the ol, and he takes upon that yoke, and he says that Ana eflach ve'eker ve'ezoin, that I will cherish my wife, and I will honor my wife, and I will give her mezoinus. At that moment, he receives the memshala, he receives the power of I will provide. So we should be zoicha Rabbi says the light of Chanukah is moisef v'hoilech, that we should also receive the power of the Chashmonayim. The power of Chanukah is moisef v'hoilech, and every generation the light is only growing stronger. Beis Hillel mamish. And we should take on more memshala b'siyat d'shmaya. We're going to see the great light of Chanukah and the Or HaGonos filling the world. We should be zoich hamamish that once and for all, Mashiach King will be here in all of his glory. And he'll be the one sitting here in Lakute Cafe, sharing the words of Reb Nachman with us. Except that it will not be big enough for all of us in this room. And even Yerushalayim will not be big enough. The whole world will be listening to the words of Mashiach Tzidkenu with the Bin Beis Hamikdash v'Mhedav Yameinu Amen Amen. What should I do?
So it's saying that